It started with the water. Guests at the Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles began to complain. The taps sputtered, the water pressure was weak, and what did flow from the faucets carried a sickening taste. Some described it as metallic. Others said it was black at first, then cleared. When they brushed their teeth, the water left an odd, bitter aftertaste. Showers were unpleasant. Even worse, some guests swore the water had a smell. The staff, after mounting complaints, finally sent a maintenance worker to check the rooftop water tanks. The Cecil Hotel had 4 of them, each towering over the city below. The worker climbed the metal ladder, slid off the heavy steel lid, and froze in horror. Inside the tank, floating face up in the water, was the body of a young woman. Naked, lifeless, her clothes sunk beneath her. Her name was Elisa Lam. She was just 21 years old. The discovery would become one of the most infamous and mysterious true crime cases of the modern era. A case that drew millions of curious eyes online. A case that sparked endless speculation. A case that still leaves us asking one question. How did Elisa Lam get inside that water tank? Elisa was born in April 1991 in Vancouver, Canada. The daughter of Hong Kong immigrants who had worked tirelessly to provide a good life for their children. She was bright, curious, and creative, with an interest in fashion, photography, and writing. But behind the energy and curiosity was a darker struggle. Elisa had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, conditions she spoke about openly on her blog, a site she titled Ether Fields. On it she shared photos of clothes she liked, thoughts about books, reflections on life, and unflinchingly honest admissions about her mental health battles. She didn't hide her struggle. She wrote about loneliness, about the weight of her illness, about how difficult it was to live day to day. By 2013, Elisa was in university, but she decided to take a break from her studies. She planned a trip along the west coast of the United States, traveling alone by bus and train. For her, it was an adventure, a way to see the world and find herself. She visited San Diego, San Francisco, and eventually Los Angeles. She updated her social media accounts as she went, posting pictures and notes about her journey. Her parents were nervous about her traveling alone, but Elisa promised to check in with them every day. On January 26, 2013, Elisa arrived in Los Angeles and checked into the Cecil Hotel, a budget accommodation with a long and disturbing history. Built in 1924, the hotel had once been grand, a place for business travelers and tourists. But by the 1930s, with the Great Depression and the decline of downtown Los Angeles, the Cecil slid into decay. Its proximity to Skid Row, an area filled with crime, drugs, and homelessness, only deepened its reputation. Over the years, the hotel became infamous for tragedy. At least 16 documented suicides occurred there, with guests leaping to their deaths from upper floors. Others overdosed or were murdered within its walls. And then there were the killers. In the 1980s, Richard Ramirez, the notorious Night Stalker who terrorized Los Angeles with home invasions, rapes, and murders, lived at the Cecil while carrying out his crimes. He would return to the hotel after nights of violence, his clothes bloody, and walk through the lobby unnoticed. In the 1990s, Jack Unterweger, an Austrian journalist and serial killer, stayed there while strangling women to death in Los Angeles. With such a dark past, the Cecil earned grim nicknames: the Suicide Hotel, the Hotel of Death. For decades, it was a place of despair. And now, It was where Elisa Lam chose to stay. At first, Elisa was placed in a shared hostel-style room, but soon her roommates complained about what they called odd behaviour. The hotel staff eventually moved her into a private room where she stayed for the remainder of her time. To outsiders, it seemed like Elisa was restless, maybe struggling, but she continued to post online, visiting bookstores, taking photos, writing about her experiences. On January 31, 2013, Elisa was last seen alive. That morning, she visited a bookstore called The Last Bookstore, just a short walk from the hotel. The owner remembered her well. She was lively, talkative, buying books and gifts to bring back home to her family. There was nothing about her that suggested the tragedy that was about to unfold. Later that day, she was supposed to check out of the hotel and travel to Santa Cruz. But Elisa never left. She never contacted her family. She simply vanished. When her parents did not hear from her, alarm bells went off. Elisa always kept in touch, and for her to go silent was completely out of character. They called the Los Angeles Police Department, who began investigating immediately. Posters with Elisa's picture went up across the city. Detectives interviewed hotel staff and searched the building, but they found nothing. Then, the LAPD made a decision that would change everything. They released surveillance footage from one of the hotel's elevators, taken on February 1st, the day after Elisa was last seen. What it showed disturbed and puzzled millions. The video begins with Elisa stepping into the elevator. She's wearing a red hoodie, shorts, and sandals. She presses several buttons, then steps back. The doors don't close. She leans forward, peering out into the hallway, then suddenly ducks back inside, pressing herself against the corner as though hiding. She peeks again, then steps out, looking both ways. She steps back in, presses more buttons, then steps out again. Her movements are strange, jerky, erratic. At one point, she seems to wave her arms, her hands twisting in bizarre motions, as if she's speaking to someone we cannot see. Her body language is unsettled, sometimes fearful, sometimes playful, sometimes frantic. Then she walks away. The elevator doors finally close and open several times before the footage ends. The video went viral. Millions watched it on YouTube, dissecting every frame. Why didn't the elevator doors close? Was someone just out of sight? Was Elisa hallucinating? Was she under the influence of drugs? Or was something darker at play? Theories poured in. Some said it was a manic episode caused by her bipolar disorder. Others were convinced she was being stalked. Some swore the video had been tampered with, that timestamps had been altered, that portions were missing. And then there were those who believed something supernatural was involved, that Elisa was interacting with a ghost or a demonic presence. For nearly 3 weeks after she vanished, the search continued, but no one found her. Her family, desperate for answers, stayed in Los Angeles, pleading with the public for help. Police searched the hotel again and again. Cadaver dogs even scoured the building, including the roof, but came up empty. Then, the complaints about the water began. By mid-February, hotel guests reported black, foul-tasting water, low pressure, and a strange smell. On February 19th, a maintenance worker climbed the ladder to the rooftop tanks. He pushed open the lid, and there she was. Elisa Lam's body, floating in the water, naked, her clothes settled at the bottom of the tank. The discovery was horrifying. For nearly 3 weeks, hotel guests had been drinking, showering, and brushing their teeth with water contaminated by a decomposing body. News of the discovery spread like wildfire. The mystery was now darker, more grotesque. The coroner's report, released in June, declared Elisa's death an accidental drowning. No drugs or alcohol were found in her system, aside from traces of her prescribed medications. The report noted her bipolar disorder as a significant contributing factor. No evidence of sexual assault or foul play was discovered. On the surface, the case seemed closed, but for the public, the case was anything but over. People demanded answers. How did Elisa get onto the roof, past locked and alarmed doors? How did she lift the heavy metal lid and climb inside? Why were her clothes removed? If this was truly just an accident, why did so many details feel impossible to explain? Some pointed to her medication levels. Toxicology showed that Elisa was likely under-medicated, meaning she may have been experiencing a severe manic episode. In such a state, she might have behaved irrationally, wandered the hotel, and somehow found her way into the tank. Others countered that even in mania, the logistics didn't make sense. The tanks were 8 feet tall. Elisa was small, just 5'4". Getting in alone, and then closing the lid, seemed nearly impossible. Theories of foul play spread. Some believed someone in the hotel, perhaps even a staff member, was involved. The elevator footage, they argued, showed her running from someone, and yet there was no evidence, no signs of assault, no suspects, no witnesses. Conspiracies blossomed. People noticed eerie similarities between Elisa's death and the 2002 horror film Dark Water, in which a young girl is found dead in a rooftop water tank of an apartment building. In the film, the water runs black, the elevators malfunction, and the mother discovers her daughter in the tank. The parallels were unsettling. Then came the strangest coincidence of all. Around the time of Elisa's death, a tuberculosis outbreak occurred near Skid Row, just blocks from the Cecil Hotel. The name of the test used to diagnose the disease: the Lam-Elisa test. To conspiracy theorists, this was too bizarre to ignore. But perhaps the most haunting part of Elisa's story is the elevator video. Her strange, frantic movements, the way the doors refused to close, the gestures she made, as if speaking to someone unseen. People debated endlessly what they meant. Some saw fear, others playfulness, others desperation. To this day, no one has been able to explain it with certainty. The Cecil Hotel itself became a focus. For decades, it had been a magnet for tragedy, and now Elisa's death had added to its legacy. Some believed the hotel was cursed, a place where darkness lingered and swallowed lives whole. The fact that serial killers had once walked its halls, that countless people had died there, only fueled the belief that Elisa's death was not just an accident, but part of a larger, sinister pattern. For Elisa's family, the obsession was unbearable. They had lost a daughter, a sister, a young woman with dreams and struggles. To them, Elisa was not a mystery to be solved on the internet. She was a person. They sued the hotel for negligence, arguing that rooftop access should have been more secure. The case was dismissed, with the court ruling that the hotel could not have reasonably foreseen such an incident. But for the public, the fascination with Elisa Lam never faded. Documentaries, podcasts, YouTube videos, endless online discussions, her story continues to live on. And still, the questions linger. How did Elisa Lam end up in that water tank? Was it truly an accident, the tragic result of mental illness and misfortune? Or was there something darker at work, something we may never fully understand?